What is going on, everyone, and welcome to WreckTalk. And I know what you're probably thinking, Wreck, why are you dressed like that? Well, because I just got back from a wedding, and the guy told me, hey, I want you to come to the wedding, but here are the colors, and you have to dress like a metrosexual. I said, joke's on you, dummy. I was going to do that anyway. So, yeah, I might wear this the rest of the week. I kind of like it. I even have a polo watch. Let's get into these games this week, though. Look, we had, I think, 6 ACC games and some interesting results, to say the least. Some things I was definitely wrong about. I don't know about you. Man, this tie. Sorry, I can't stop looking at myself. Anyways, here was the rankings from last week. There's going to be some changes. Folks. Let's go ahead and reset these. And we have to think of what the new doo-doo tier for this week is. What are we going to call the doo-doo tier this week? We're going to call this week's doo-doo tier the Virginia Tech second half play tier. Yeah. We'll talk about it in a little bit, though. What's the first game on the docket here? Duke at Miami. Now, I did watch most of this game. Duke, if I'm not mistaken, was up 2 scores at some point in the third quarter of this game. Miami ends up winning 53-31. I hate to admit it because I hate most of the teams in the ACC that aren't my own. This message brought to you by the Nectar of the Gods, Diet Coke. Miami's offense is legit. Cam Ward is legit. When they score in bunches, and it comes quickly. Unlike most of you at the bars with the ladies. Anyways, big game for Cam Ward, 400 yards, 5 touchdowns. Restrepo, 146 yards, 3 touchdowns. Evidently, this was a grudge game for Miami. Who really knows why? Again, Manny Diaz didn't do anything to Miami that any other coach didn't do. Oh, but he lost to FIU or something. Well, and you're mad at Jeff Collins for that, right? Yeah, but when Jeff Collins lost to teams like that, he was going to lose to 8 other teams as well. That's the difference in him and what you're thinking. But Miami's the clear number 1 in the conference. I do think they could have some issues on defense, but it is made up for by the production they have on offense. They're a national title contender for sure. They are the clear number 1 in the conference. I don't think anyone's going to argue that. Now, Duke. I still think they're an average team, though. What are they, 6-3? Yeah. They just didn't have the horses to run with Miami. They're not an awful team. They're not a good team either. They're kind of in college football team purgatory at the moment. The next game, Louisville at Clemson. I didn't see this coming. In my opinion, Clemson was a covering machine. Arguably the best team in the conference before this week. They had lost 1 game, and that was to number 1 ranked at the time, Georgia, although Georgia doesn't seem to be the team that they have been in the past few years. Clemson really got blown out in this game. And it wasn't, I watched Pigskin Pete's channel. If you don't watch that, go ahead and subscribe to Pigskin Pete. A lot of people blaming Klubnik. I mean, dang, they asked a lot of him. He threw 56 times, completed 33 balls for 228 yards and a touchdown. Clemson just didn't have it in this game. And the trend has started where we throw shit on the field when we get a result we don't like. I knew when this happened at Texas, and I talked to a 30-year veteran, Gus Morris is his name, SEC official, about that. When that play got reversed, now I don't think it was for throwing trash on the field. He doesn't either. But it had the optics of it. Clemson fans throwing trash on the field. What was it, after the onside kick or something? Here's the thing. If you don't like that, maybe don't get down 3 scores to a Louisville team that you're flat out better than, or I should say more talented than. You've got a coach with multiple national titles. You've out-recruited Louisville. Louisville has never beat Clemson. This is the first time Louisville's ever beat Clemson, and they do it in Death Valley. This is an awful look for Clemson. I would think they drop a good bit in the polls. And virtually the same record, just Louisville's played one more game. 6-3 now on the season for Louisville, 6-2 for Clemson. Shout out to the Teethed Birds for biting the Tigers in Death Valley. Now, that is still only one loss for Clemson. I still think they're an ACC title contender. It's 2 ACC losses for Louisville, though. I'm still putting them in the above average tier, but a very impressive win for them on the road at Clemson. The most surprising result, maybe of the year for me. Pitt convinced me that they were a good team. Rattling off 7 straight wins. Putting it to Syracuse, and who I do think is a good quarterback in Kyle McCord. They're just throwing way too much with them. And Syracuse is one-dimensional. We'll talk about them in a second, though. SMU beat the ever-loving life out of Pitt. SMU is making the ACC look silly. Let's just call it what it is. They are most likely going to the ACC title game. Or maybe I shouldn't say most likely. They are very likely to make it. Here's the remaining games on their schedule. Boston College, Virginia, Cal. Boston College at Virginia and Cal. They'll be favored in every one of those games, some of them by more than one score. What are you doing, Pitt? What are you doing? Shocking. 48-25. And I had Pitt to cover. No. SMU was a 7.5-point favorite. I said, what in the world? This is easy money, right? That's why you don't bet on sports, by the way. I still think Pitt is an above-average team. I'm still going to put them in front of Louisville for the moment. Well, should I though? Well, Louisville has more losses and more worse losses. SMU, ACC championship contender. I still don't think they're a national title contender. I'm probably going to catch flack for that. But, I mean, in my opinion, they lose first round of the playoffs if they were to win the ACC. I also don't think they're going to beat Miami either, though. SMU's undefeated in the ACC. SMU, as of today, has never lost an ACC game being a member of it. Shout out to SMU. SMU's a good team. Definitely an ACC championship contender. Pitt. It's just embarrassing, man. What are you doing? What are you doing, Narduzzi? Stanford and NC State. Now, this was a game no one cared about unless you're a fan of either one of these teams. Stanford, an awful team, 1-5 in the ACC, 2-7 on the year. I get they're without their quarterback, or they have been, but NC State's an awful team this year. NC State, other than Florida State's the biggest disappointment in the ACC. Well, what about North Carolina? North Carolina's over under win total was only 7. NC State had much higher expectations coming into the year. They beat the brakes off Stanford 59-28 in North Carolina. Now, NC State, not a good team. They're bad. They're bad. Okay, they're bad. If you root for NC State, it's bad. The thing is, Stanford's even worse. Stanford's actually going in the doo-doo tier. Stanford's going in the doo-doo tier this week. I mean, we just got to call a tree at some point. Another crazy game. I only watched half of this game, and I watched the wrong half of it. I watched the first half of Virginia Tech at Syracuse. Virginia Tech was up 2 or 3 scores going into halftime. Virginia Tech was up 14-3 at halftime. And then they get outscored 28. They get outscored over 30 points to 7 in the rest of the game. Syracuse comes back, takes this thing to overtime and wins. Syracuse definitely got one over on Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech started a backup quarterback. No one knew Drones was going to be out, and Tootin was out. I get both of that. But that backup quarterback that came in for Virginia Tech was lighting it up, and Syracuse had no life to him. Then coming out in the third quarter, you let Syracuse hit some big explosive plays, momentum shift. Syracuse ends up winning the game. They are 3-2 in the ACC as well as Virginia Tech. I don't know what to think about Syracuse right now. I mean, I really don't. Very inconsistent this year, very up and down, but they are finding ways to win, and no one expected them to be 6-2 preseason. No one, including you and me. Because they're inconsistent, though, I just think they're an average team at the moment. Same exact thing with Virginia Tech, though. Same at that, you know, the Vanderbilt loss doesn't look as bad. Let me go back. But they lost to like Rutgers, didn't they? Yeah, they lost to Rutgers. They've lost to Miami. They've lost to Vanderbilt. They've lost to Syracuse. I don't know. I don't know what to think about either one of these teams. I think they're about average, though. I think we'll just keep them right there. In the last game, North Carolina at Florida State. Now, I picked North Carolina in this game. I picked North Carolina to cover. I don't remember if I took the over in it, though. I think I do. And I don't think, I mean, they were at 46. It was 35-11. North Carolina wins. What can you say about Florida State that your toilet hasn't said already? I mean, it's really sad almost at this point. If it would be sad if it weren't so hilarious. Florida State, this has to be the worst year in their program history, going back to the time, you know, they basically founded the ACC, right? 1-8. Let's look at the rest of Florida State's schedule. They've got Notre Dame, who's going to beat the brakes off of them, Charleston Southern, and Florida. Most likely, Florida State is going to be a 2-win team this year. They might find the money to fire Mike Norvell after this season. I mean, the confidence, the buy-in, the faith in Norvell at this point is so low. I don't know if it can be recovered. Now, he's going to kind of be scapegoated. I'd spent a whole offseason addressing what was going on, things that were outside of Mike Norvell's control. But you let Goof Collins, oh, no socks, the clown at North Carolina hold you to 11? Man, it's sad. Florida State is not only the worst team in the ACC, they're the worst Power 4 team in the country. Put in the comments, a worse Power 4 team than Florida State. More than half of the group of 5 schools are better than Florida State. I could just rattle them off. Marshall's better. Georgia State is better. Memphis is obviously better. Arkansas State's better. In fact, I can't think of, if I just think of a bunch of random group of 5 schools, one that is worse than Florida State. Florida A&M, better than Florida State. But that'll be it. The rest of the teams were on a bye. Georgia Tech was on a bye. They're a bad team right now. And look, my channel is a Georgia Tech channel. I get grief for where I put them in the power rankings. Here's my thing with power rankings. I want to be as objective as I possibly can. Georgia Tech has got to come out and play better offense. They basically got to play a complete game on both sides of the ball. Do they have to go beat Miami? No, that's quite unlikely to happen. You don't need to get embarrassed. You don't need to be held to no offensive touchdowns. Like, those are the things Georgia Tech are going to have to do to move out of the bad Power 4 tier. Virginia on a bye. Virginia, they're probably right there. They're a bad Power 4 team. Wake, they're probably worse than NC State. Boston College, they're somewhere in here. They're somewhere between NC State and Wake. Cal, I'd call them an average team. I'll put them at the back half. You could argue of putting them anywhere behind Syracuse here. We'll put them here, though. But, guys, let's just call it what it is. The ACC's down. Is just down. I don't think that I'm being hyperbolic in ranking basically half of the ACC teams as bad or worse. Like, would you say Georgia Tech's playing really good football right now? Would you say North Carolina is, or Virginia, or Boston College, any of these teams? No. Who are you going to trust? Me or your lying eyes, right? Or your lying eyes are what I'm seeing. Boy, I boggled that up. Anyways, the final list here. No argument. Number 1, Miami. Number 2, and I can't believe I'm saying this, F every other ACC team for making me do this. SMU number 2. In fact, I'd have to look at the probabilities. Would not surprise me if the most likely matchup for the ACC Conference Championship right now is Miami SMU, which is going to give SMU a layup, or Miami a layup to walk undefeated into the playoffs and get a first round bye. Whew. Now that could be interesting because Miami would go to the playoffs no matter what. So would they rest some people? Who knows? Who knows? They'd have to play an extra game though. Miami number 1, SMU number 2, Clemson number 3 after an embarrassing loss to Louisville, Pitt 4, Louisville 5. Now Louisville fans are going to say, well, how do you have Clemson 2 spots ahead of us when we just beat the fool out of them? Well, because they didn't lose the games that you did coming into that game. Pretty much how it works. Syracuse 6, Duke 7, Virginia Tech 8, Cal 9, Georgia Tech 10, North Carolina 11, Virginia 12, Boston College 13, NC State 14, Wake Forest 15, Stanford 16, and FSU dead last at 17. Thank God this week I could count. Thank you for looking at my pink tie the whole time, and I'll see you guys next time.